Brothers of the shining moon, heaven, earth, and sea, I call upon you in this hour, bring magic unto me. Brothers, oh, the cauldron cries, it singeth unto me the songs of Mother Goddess and of Father in the tree.
Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we are off adventuring into these spaces between, because we can. Yes, yes. And we are being broadcast live tonight, of course, on Truth Frequency Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live. And also on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. Hello, hello. Hey, maybe if I talk into the mic, right? Blah. So if you are on YouTube, make sure you hit that thumbs up button and the like, subscribe, and all that jazz. And then say hi in the chat rooms. If you're not able to chat in the chat rooms because you're being safe while driving, totally get it. Just send me an email at wildpaisley@gmail.com. That's WILDEPAISLEY @gmail.com. Let's see. Nope, no drone. Let's see. If you want to support the show, you can do so by going to etsy.com/shop/Monarch Mountain Studio with MTN for Mountain. Or you can go to patreon.com/TheSpacesBetween. Or if you just want to support my radio habit, you can do that by doing the hashtag bit, and that is $TheSpacesBetween. By the way, the hashtag also accepts Bitcoin. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. The call line is open tonight. And that number is 213-233-3998. Or if you're across the pond in the UK, it's 44203-393-2871. You know, I've been doing this for 2 years now. I still have to look at the phone number because I can't remember it. And yes, Justin, it is perfectly safe to send an email while driving. I'm kidding, joking, not really. Just makes me giggle. Mostly because wildpaisley@gmail.com is a lot easier to remember than, oh yeah, I wanted to make a comment there. So, anyways. Oop. So, I hope you guys are just having a fantastic weekend. Here it is in the U.S. We get to play with time because, it's not like Americans don't have a big enough ego. We have to think we can control time too, right? And so, yeah, it's spring forward ahead tomorrow night, going into Sunday. So don't forget to set your clocks before you go to bed tomorrow. Which studies have shown that the daylight savings time transitions really does mess up people's internal clocks and their circadian rhythms, and people have become more prone to having significant health issues during that time transition, which is insane and weird. Just very weird. Bomber, you're funny. What's a clock? A clock is that thing that I like to throw. It is good for rituals, Bam. Mostly because suddenly it's not quite as late at night. Even though it's late at night, if that makes you any sense at all. Just weird time zone stuff. Anyways, so tonight my show topic is the burdens we carry. Now, this is one that's been kicking around in the back of my head for a bit because, well, we all carry burdens of one type or another, right? We do. Parents carry the burden of taking care of their children or their elder family members. Our kids sometimes, have to take care of their parents. There's the burden of going to work, burden of bills, burden of taking care of your responsibilities. Those are all burdens, right? But are they really? So, yeah, we're going to talk about it a bit tonight. So, first off, just like many other times in the past, I want to define burden. Burden is a noun, by the way. A couple of different definitions here because why not just have more than one, right? So, a burden is considered a load. Generally, it's a heavy load, or it may be the main responsibility for achieving a specified aim or task. A ship's carrying capacity or tonnage. A duty or misfortune that causes hardship, anxiety, or grief. A nuisance. It could be the main theme or gist of a speech, book, or argument. Now, that's as a noun. As a verb, because why not? English language is such a fun thing. So, as a verb, burden means load heavily, or to cause someone hardship, or to cause hardship or distress. So, burden is a word rooted in the Germanic languages. It went from West Germanic to Old English to contemporary. Burden also means to bear. The Old English version is burthen, Byrthen. And, yep, just related to bear, Bear, bear. So, often if burden is used in a sentence, the burden of proof, for instance, is the obligation to prove one's assertion. Or in cause, perhaps they were not yet burdened with adult responsibility. There's all sorts of different definitions for burden and different times and ways to use it. And often when we're doing things, we feel like we might be a burden. So what does it mean to be a burden? Well, a burden generally means that you're causing someone difficulty or maybe hard work, worry. Example here. The developing countries bear the burden of an enormous external debt. I'm pulling these from online, so the definitions for Oxford Languages. And this one here is from collinsdictionary.com, and Donna's deep sign in the background. Another synonyms. Synonyms for burden in this particular situation is trouble, care, worry, trial, that kind of thing. Burden. Does Don want to be on air?
My camera's all messed up.
Okay. You got a whole lot going in the background there. You need to, anyways. So, what's it mean to be a burden? I know that growing up, I saw this in a couple of different, it played out in a couple of different ways. I grew up with a single parent, and I have younger siblings, and I'm the oldest, which probably doesn't surprise anybody. And as a result, the burden of taking care of my siblings was left on my shoulders, which was an adventure. We'll leave it at that. And the burden for most of the bills and everything were, or had more to do with my dad paying the bills and everything. So yeah, it was interesting growing up because at a very young age I was considered to be the woman of the household. And I got to learn how to do a lot of things kind of by the seat of my pants and trial and error and just, well, I think this is the way it works. So that's kind of the way I approached most of the world. And sometimes that is a burden because there's probably easier ways to do things than I know how. And I know this intuitively, but at the same time, it's just the way I do things. And yeah. Was it a burden for my dad to raise 3 girls? Yeah. Yeah, he's not very in tune with his inner feminine side at all. And those burdens of growing up and everything, I got to tell you, I learned a lot. And here, probably about 8 years ago, I had to call my dad and say, "Hey, Dad, thanks for doing things the way you did, because I learned the things I needed to learn to do the things I need to do." It was an adventure. And I woke up one day, I was out working on a fence. It's like, OMG-ness. Did I grow up to turn into my father or what? It wasn't really something I wanted to do. But, I've got a skill set that's pretty unique for someone my age or my generation. And in some ways my gender. And then, growing up, though, that burden was it something that my father chose, though. Because if you choose to accept a burden, is it really a burden? And I honestly don't think so. And this is why. You make choices every doggone day. I make choices. Don makes choices. Mini-Me makes choices. Shoot, the blasted cat makes choices. Generally has more to do with knocking things over than anything really productive. But
They have a choice to be catty, and they have a choice not to be catty.
She could be doggy or mousy or I don't know. She just sheds. Anyways, so when it comes to burdens in general, though, if you're choosing it, that means you're accepting all of the things that might be associated with whatever it is that someone from the outside might be viewing as a burden. And I know, there's mental health burdens, there's financial burdens, there's debt burdens, there's family burdens. All those things are burdens, but I guess I don't see them as trials. For me, a burden is a trial or a tribulation or a chore, something I don't necessarily want to do, but I know I have to do it. So a burden I choose is something I have looked at, and I have weighed the variables, and I have looked at the bits and pieces and everything else. And if I have taken it on as a thing voluntarily, it is no longer a burden. But again, it doesn't mean that someone from the outside looking in doesn't think it is. And that's okay, because Belmer says, "Yeah, I like my dishes." Yeah, burdens are not dishes. Yeah. Yeah.
Paper plates.
Yeah, but those have other issues involved. Yeah, they do. Anyway, so yeah, burden. If we don't accept some of the burdens or have to deal with some of those burdens in life, we don't turn out to be the people that we need to be. And when I say that, sometimes we need those challenges. Sometimes we need those things to overcome, those hurdles to overcome. Not that Oedipus is ever anybody to idealize, but Oedipus had to push that boulder up the hill. Am I thinking of the right myth?
Hephaestus. Isn't it Hephaestus who's stole fire for the humans, and the gods caught him and made him push a rock up a hill for all of eternity?
I don't know. Uphill.
It's probably Sisyphus.
Sisyphus. That's who it is. Sisyphus. So Sisyphus is punished in the underworld by the god Zeus, who forces him to roll a boulder up a hill for all of eternity. And every time he gets to the top, the boulder rolls back down. Yeah, Sisyphus, not Oedipus. Different kind of us.
Epicurus.
Epicurus, yeah.
Food.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, in this particular situation, Sisyphus is been cursed with a burden that he's never going to overcome, and because he's never going to overcome it, it is a true burden. It's not something he's, in theory, going to ever be able to get away from. And because it's something you can't get away from, you can't take a time out. You can't say, ollie, ollie, oxen free. You can't do, this is my safe spot and I don't have to deal with this anymore. Because if that's what happens, then the boulder's going to roll right over you and you're going to be a squished Sisyphus. And nobody wants that. Nobody wants a squished Sisyphus. So, Don's working on a cat fight, I think. Anyway, so the burdens in general should be defined by the person who is carrying the burden rather than by the people around them. Because when you judge a task or something that you're going to knock that over, when others judge what you're doing based upon their own filters, their own rose-colored glasses, whatever, the things that say my neighbor might consider a burden, I think is no big deal. So you have to remember that when you are looking at someone else and you're from the outside looking in, your definition of burden is going to be entirely different than the person who's dealing with it. Titan wants to know if we can change Sisyphus to Karen. No, because that implies Karen is going to someday learn. In theory, Sisyphus is going to learn, right? Isn't that why he's supposed to be doing this? Aaron wants to know why didn't Sisyphus just stay on top of the hill? Well, because he wasn't clever enough to convince Zeus that he just needed to stay on top of the hill. Let's see. What's the definition of a Karen? Aaron, Karen is defined as 2020. Can you define a person as a year?
He says, I literally have a neighbor named Karen who is the definition. Who is the definition?
Who is
Karen?
Okay.
No, it's
okay. Sorry, I misread that. Let's see. Sorry,
he says he's lucky. He's lucky she likes him.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing, Aaron? Just asking. Because sometimes those Karens duplicate. So be careful. So, burden, heavy load. Sisyphus is an excellent example of someone who's carrying a heavy load. Overburdened. I overburdened myself, and that's why I have back issues. Did I know I was overburdening myself at the time? Nope, I thought I could handle it. And that's something else. Sometimes when we comes to our burdens that we're carrying, in the moment, we think we can do it. We think we can deal with it, and it's no big deal. But often in retrospect or looking back, we realize that, you know what, we were taking on too much. And yes, it was a burden. It was weighing us down. It starts negatively affecting our health, our mental health, our physical health, financial health, spiritual health. There's all those different health little tabs. And the ones we set that burden down and walk away, we're like, oh, well, shoot, I feel lighter. So if you ever, question here, have you ever been dealing with something and finally resolved it in your brain or decided it wasn't for you anymore? And so you sat it down and you walk away, or it's like, I'm not good.
Cat fight.
I'm not going to deal with this anymore because it's not my thing. Hi, Ellen. this relationship is so toxic, I just can't deal with it anymore, and you sever your ties and suddenly you move on, and you're not dealing with that thing or that person or whatever it is, and often you feel lighter, like you're done with it. You quit the job that's toxic. I mean, we've all had one of those. Nothing like walking out of your toxic job on that last day. It is such a good feeling. Like, I'm done, I'm moving on. And so because of that, that heavy burden gets lighter and is no longer dragging you down and is no longer taking up brain space. Because there's so much more out there in the world that we should be doing than having to deal with the stuff that's soaking up, all of our energy, stealing our spoons, and, crowding our headspace. So, the burden, the heavy load, sometimes it's the burdens we pack on. We take on these responsibilities, or we take on these literal weights that we don't really need. And so in the retrospect for this last year, look at 2020. 2020 was quite the burden. For many of us, we are burdened with complicated.
The worry of we're gonna die.
Yeah.
The crash of the economy. Trump's gonna kill us all. Blah blah blah.
Yep, I'm going to lose my job. I'm not going to lose my job. I have to wear a mask. I don't have to wear a mask. Oh, I need this or there's so many different things happen in 2020. I don't know about anybody else, but 2021, haven't decided if it's a burden yet or not.
Well, we're still waiting for Mad Max to happen.
Right. Can I have Tina Turner here?
That was Beyond Thunderdome. That was number 3.
She's in the Mad Max movies.
There's a lot of people in the Mad Max movies that probably shouldn't have been there.
And this is a true statement. I never understood why. Okay, side note, squirrel, because this is what we do here. Why is it in the post-apocalyptic movies, even on Waterworld, everybody's dirty? It's like the world goes sideways and everybody forgets what soap and water are, or just water. I mean, Waterworld. Literally, everything is covered with water. Why couldn't they just, they fell in the water occasionally anyways. Why not? So.
Lucky says, good question.
I mean. Even some of the sci-fi ones where everybody's on a spaceship, they're still dirty. Anyways, a total squirrel moment. I'm sorry, but I had to put it out there. Maybe somebody can explain it to me why all of post-apocalyptic movies seem to be dirty.
The deal. Face the wheel.
I mean, yeah. Anyways. So, yes.
I swear he sits there and looks stuff up as we talk.
So Bam says coronal mass ejection will lead us to a Mad Max world. Yep.
And while we're having a corona explosion.
Yeah.
Ejection.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yep. The unwashed masses. Yep. Apparently, I grew up off the grid. No running water. No electricity.
That's why they call it a spit polish.
I had a cold creek in the backyard. Yes, I would still. I just deep cleansing breath because one hoarder got all the soap.
Anyhow,
and a little TP. So, anyways, yeah, the burden of not understanding. And I'm not going to start the next thought because we only have like a minute before break.
Oh, okay.
Can't believe it. The first half hour just screams by some days. Bomber says priorities change in an apocalypse. Cleaning takes a backseat. Apparently, yeah. I don't know. I that's something I've never understood. So, did you know an archaic definition of the word burden means the refrain or chorus of a song.
Like that one? Shut up! We're doing a show.
This is drama.
No, that's the other one.
That's the other one. All right. Ignorance is not bliss. It is weighty in the long run. Very true. So, we are about to go to our first break. Remember, the phone lines are open if you want to call and give us your 2 cents. It's 213-233-3998. And then, going to break. And yes, Lucky, that is one of the cats, because why not? We'll be right back.
Oh, they can't see me shake my head.
Songs of love and
Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we are off adventuring into the spaces between. And yeah, tonight we're talking about burdens. Sometimes you carry them on purpose, and sometimes by accident, sometimes by choice. If it's by choice, is it really a burden, though? All right. During the
Yes.
break, you guys totally missed it. Because you know how we talk about Karens all the time? And no offense to any of the Karens out there. It's just kind of a running joke. It's all over the internet. So Titan says that a group of Karens is called a burden.
He hit that one out of the park, didn't he?
Yep, home run.
Oh, that was funny.
Oh, yes. I had to giggle a lot. Because, yes. All right, so... where was I? Oh, here we are. I was looking at the synonyms. Synonyms. Olin says that he considers himself to be a beast of burden. His father worked him like a rented mule growing up.
Yep, I know how that is.
Yep, same here. You know, I wonder, is that what's wrong with so many of the kids today? They don't understand what it is to be a workhorse or a mule.
Yeah. You know, it's one of those things. It's like, you know, that can become a burden of its own in our later life, because Olin just also said, you know, I've always considered myself a beast of burden. Work is all I do.
Mm-hmm.
He's at work right now,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that's the kind of way I am. You know, it's like we were talking earlier, you know, being ready to go to work an hour early and having nothing to do, because if you get into something, you're going to forget to go to work. And I've done that. And, you know, then you're like, oh my God, I'm running out the door. And then you get to work and you're like, you're standing around, you're still a half an hour early. And what's there to do? You're just standing there. Well, what do? You go to work. You work half an hour off the clock because, like, you can't clock in and you're half an hour early. And what do? I'm the guy that can't sit around and wait, you know. So I'm out doing, you know, what it is. Yeah, Olin, good workers are hard to come by these days. As a matter of fact, oddly enough, I get a call at work the other day. Hey, who's the LOD today? I said, oh, that'd be the boss, the big boss. He's like, the person's on the phone. Hey, Don, who's the LOD today? I said, you know, the big boss. He's like, oh, tell him I'm not going to make it in. I said, no. I said, hold on. And I called the boss and I said, hey, there's a phone call for you and you don't want to take it. You know, and this guy's called in 4 or 5 times in the last 5 months. We have guys that call in once a week and they only work 2 days a week. You know, we had one person, I don't know how this person got promoted. They got promoted into another store in a higher position.
Mm-hmm.
Started on Monday, called in sick Tuesday and Wednesday. So I don't know how that works. Yeah, you're right. There's no work ethic is what it is. But you know what? These are all younger people. These are people that are under like the age of like 30. They're like 25-ish
Mm-hmm.
at best. So it's really, those cats are just driving me nuts. They're just having a night. Apparently it's not date night for them. Maybe this is date night for them. But you know, like I said, though, you know, what we learn as children can become a burden to us as adults. You know, I mean, it's burdensome to be able to have to get up, and you don't have to go to work until like 10 a.m., right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're up at 4 and you have nothing to do. You know, it's like, you know, and it's not necessarily a burden that you have to work. I mean, we've got to do. The burden is being responsible for paying the rent, paying the power, paying the water, paying the, you know, this, that, and the other. You know, having to buy food. Why does anybody have to buy food? I'm kind of one of those things. Anyhow.
Burden.
You know, so, you know, I mean, these burdens that are forced upon us. As I was having a thought when I was driving home last night, I'm like, if I get pulled over for doing like 2 miles an hour over the speed limit, and if I didn't have insurance, is that my burden? Is that truly my burden?
Well, according to the state of Idaho, yes, it is.
Okay, but here's the thing. According to the federal laws, if you don't have insurance, which is a burden on most people,
Mm-hmm.
you are breaking the law. Tell me who the victim is. Tell me who the victim is. Who is the victim here? Not the police, not law enforcement, not me, because like I'm apparently the one that's wrong. Who's the victim? A corporation, because they didn't get their frickin' money. Sorry. So, burden. Sorry. But also, we've talked about before, the and I don't know if you're going to get to this. I don't know what your, plan is for the night. The sins of the father. That's the burdens of the burdens of the children are the sins of the father.
See, now, I disagree 100%.
I'm just quoting
one.
what's been said before.
Oh, I know.
You don't have me on camera. Okay, cool.
Oh, I can.
I don't believe that I carry my father or my mother's burdens. My job is to be the best person I can be, teach my people, whoever that may be, my kids, teach whoever to do it a better way so they don't have those burdens.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how you break the cycle. You become a better person. You don't have to do penance for it. You don't have to, self-flagellate. I mean, my God, like, oh, I'm such a bad person. Oh, I'm such a bad person. My dad was an alcoholic. My mother's an idiot. So, but it's not just...
Was that 30 lashes with a phone cord?
Yes, 30 lashes with the phone cord. Who's that guy that plays... who's that guy? Gosh. He plays Vision in WandaVision, and he's been in all that guy.
Mm-hmm.
He played Chaucer in Knight's Tale.
Yeah.
But he also played in a movie called... Was it Legion? No.
I think he was in that one too, but the one where he's...
Yeah, he's self-flagellating because he's
that
punishing
was
himself.
Angels and Demons.
What is it? The Dan Brown?
Yeah, the follow-up.
Tom Hanks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, that's exactly where I was going with that. Yeah, and that's kind of what it is. It's self-flagellation because you're not good enough. You're not this. You're not that. The sins of your father and his father before him, and on and on and on and down through the ages. I'm I'm related to a Confederate general through my lineage.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to sit here and beat myself over the head because I had a relative that fought on the side of the South. Now, did he own slaves? No. But because he was a Southern Confederate general, that's the general consensus. Whatever. It's not the point. The point is I am not my grandfather. I'm not my great grandfather. I'm not my great great grandfather. I'm not even my father.
Mm-hmm.
I am a total different person, done things totally different, and I'm going to pass my ideals of being a better person through being better than that by being a better person, and then pass that on and on and on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
This is the way we get better. We don't self-flagellate. We don't drop to our knees and beg for forgiveness. And this is me speaking. So it's just one of those things. The burdens of the father are not the burdens of the children. So there you have it.
So exactly. So that's would that be a spiritual burden or emotional burden, physical burden?
It can be all of the above because, like you said, one burden can feed into the next and make it even worse.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you have mental health issues, for instance, that causes some burdens that you are dealing with, and if your mental health issues prevent you from going to work on a consistent basis, or you be employed consistently, then you have a hard time being employed. You have a hard time paying your bills, which cause suddenly everything keeps adding up, and next thing you know, you're living in a cardboard box under the bridge, and your name is Eggs. Um, so
Sorry. That was funny.
I totally distracted Dawn. Um, you just channel your inner box troll, but it's when we look at what is a burden, societally, for instance, there is an entire school of thought right now that figures that you're gonna have to explain that to Lucky.
Explain what to Lucky.
Eggs.
Oh. Watch the movie Box Trolls.
You gotta.
It's
just,
funny. It's
just
good. It's a good movie.
Anyways, there's a societal assumption that, especially right now, I think that the burden is being applied to those who make more. They have to take care of those who make less.
Right.
Now,
No, here's the thing. I wouldn't have a problem. So, like, say, I don't have a problem paying taxes. Don't get me wrong, taxes are not something I agree with. But I don't mind paying taxes, and those taxes going to support or supplement people who make less than I. I don't really have a problem with that. But those people need to do a few things. Like they actually have to work to achieve and gain, as opposed to sitting on welfare for 30 years, bringing kids into the world just so they can stay on welfare.
yeah,
That's my problem.
there's some expectations societally that I have issues with, and now there are some things, situational things like manufacturing facilities moving out of a community and suddenly.
Down by the river.
I
Sorry. It's Aiden's fault, or Aaron's fault that time.
okay. So, there's you have my thought here. If Aiden, it is Box Trolls. It's a very cute movie. It's a cartoon, super cute. You gotta just accept people as they are, even if they live in a box called eggs. Yes, compelled giving is theft. Yeah, that's part of my issue with tithing. Did your head just explode?
Yeah, I've already talked about it though, so I'll just move along.
So if I am forced to take care of others,
I'm forced to go to jury duty. No victim, no crime.
it depends on the case.
If somebody got pulled over for drunk driving without insurance and they weren't in an accident, there was nobody affected by it, where's the crime? Corporations want their money. Sorry.
All right. Anyways, taxes and tithing, they kind of go hand in hand there. To me, tithing is, now it's my own interpretation, and the way I kind of feel about it is that you're basically trying to finance your way to get beyond the pearly gates.
Well, there's a difference between donation and tithing. If you're required to tithe,
That's compelled giving.
5 or 10% of your monthly, that's
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, I don't know. If I choose to help someone, I don't see it as a burden.
Yeah, that's donating your time, your goodwill, and that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, step up and take care of those that need to be helped. That, absolutely, I totally get. But those that feel it necessary to compel me to take care of someone else, yeah, I have issues with that. It's kind of like the panhandlers sitting outside Walmart who kind of clog up traffic. On the one hand, I want to help people. On the other hand, some of them seem to drive better cars than I do. And
that's another thing is there are people who make a living of it, and they actually have things. So anyhow,
Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, my personal belief: if you choose it, it's not a burden. So I'm going to keep coming back to that. Another definition of burden. Let's see. Noun, burden. The main responsibility for achieving a specified aim or task. All right. So, the rule of thumb when it comes to
no sticks bigger than your thumb.
volunteer work, for instance, 80% of the people, or so was it? 20% of the people do 80% of the work. So, in the example here is the burden of establishing that the cost was unreasonable. I don't know. Anyway, see, if you are the only one working towards a goal, so say like in a workplace, if you have a team of 5, generally speaking, one person at least is going to do nothing. They're going to use oxygen, and that's about it. On average. I'm not going to say every single time, because sometimes you have a great team that, just does everything you need to do. But occasionally, you do end up with that one lead weight that drags you down and is an anchor rather than a building block. Millstone. Yeah. And that's frustrating, because then it seems like the other people have to pick up the slack and communicate better and do all the things, and that one person is just sucking up oxygen. Now, while it's frustrating, yes, you are still learning something about the value of communication, your limits, what you're willing to put up with and what you're not willing to put up with, which if you leave that employer or go on and do something else, that's a really good lesson to maintain and hang on to, because once you know where your proverbial line is that you don't want to be crossed, that protects you from being burdened by other things down the road. And yeah, that's frustrating when that happens, but still you learn things. Now, early in my employment history, I was working as a waitress, and a friend of mine and I, we were both in high school at the same time. I think we were 17-ish. It's been a while. And we were both waiting tables. We had someone who was a busser, but there were supposed to be like 3 other people working that night. It was a Saturday night. It was busy. We had a couple of groups scheduled, and busy, packed house because it was a very popular restaurant and everything. And a bunch of people called in sick, and so my friend and I were the only ones working. And we split the restaurant in half, and we did rock, paper, scissors to see who was going to get which half, and we went with it. Now, I learned what I was willing to put up with and what I wasn't willing to put up with in that particular situation, and there's just some people I'm not going to work with now. And I learned it early on. And I also learned how to roll with a situation that I had zero control over. And that, honestly, I think was a hugely valuable lesson, along with all of the tips that I got that night, because everybody was sympathetic. But often, yeah, we really do need to learn if we can still
looking for a safe space,
still be able to accomplish what we need to do, even though we're incredibly stressed, we're overworked, we're underpaid, and everything else. We learn how to cope in extreme situations where it's extremely stressful. And I think that lesson has been very, very valuable for me throughout the years, because, hold on.
What are you breaking now?
Nothing. I put the keyboard on the keyboard tray so the cat doesn't sit on the keyboard, because she's like 4 times what the weight she should be, and she'll break it. She's a burden to your keyboard. Anyway, so yeah, was it a burden to have to do all those things on that busy Saturday night? Yep, sure was. But yeah, I learned really good lessons. So in retrospect, now, 30 years later, gosh, um, I look back and I'm not irritated, I'm not upset, but I remember the value of the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the value makes the burden less. Because yeah, it's the being able to find the value in a situation definitely changes the amount of burden that is there or implied. Let's see. Sorry, just double checking my obligation. So the other thing is obligation that I think kind of goes along with that one is the burden of obligation is that I am obligated to take care of the fat cat here. Make sure she's got food. I've got chickens, so I'm obligated to make sure I'm taking care of the chickens. And if I'm not able to, because the chickens are confined, they can't get out and take care of themselves, so I'm obligated to make sure that someone's going to be able to take care of them. Same with the cat.
No, the cat can go outside.
I was going to say, if I can't take care of the cat, it's my responsibility to either make sure she's in a place where she can be okay, or somebody else will take care of her. Now, she could use a diet, so that'll help, but in general, if you take on an obligation of some sort, like pets, if you have pets, you're obligated to make sure you take care of them. Food, water, vaccines, worming, clean place to sleep, being, teaching them right and wrong behavior, that kind of thing. And if you can't live up to that obligation, that responsibility of being a good pet owner, you probably shouldn't have a pet.
Probably not. You probably shouldn't have kids either. Just saying.
Yeah. Now, sometimes finding out you're going to have a child changes your entire viewpoint and switches your responsibility switch a little bit. Aiden says family doesn't end at bloodlines, and it also doesn't always begin in bloodlines either. I'm sure that's being applied somewhere else, but I think it's a very true statement, because family is not just those that are born to you. Family is also those that you choose to include in your circle, your sphere, your world. And often the family that you choose ends up being the family that you have longer than those that you were born to.
Right. Somebody in chat just said, family isn't just who you're born to, it's who you choose to associate with.
Yep, 100%. And I've got friends that I would do just about anything for. Yep, they're family. My door is always open to them. And I've got family that, sure, you can come for a visit, just go away soon.
Right.
Just because we don't have the same values, we don't have the same...
we don't walk the same paths.
At all. Yeah. No, we're not even on a parallel interstate at all. Anyways, so we're about to go to our top of the hour break. I cannot believe how quickly time flies on our Friday nights.
Again?
Yeah. We're like 30 seconds. Anyways, so yeah. When we come back from break, I'm going to talk a little bit more about burden as it applies to being a pagan or a witch, because we do talk about paganism and witchcraft, so I need to tie it back in. It's not just me talking about boundaries and burdens and such, but it's important to know what your limits are when it comes to burdens or things that you are, willing to put up with and carry. So, anyways, we're off to break. We'll be right back. Maybe. No, we will be. We'll see you guys soon.
Okay.
Well, it's the ticker keeps ticking. All
Well,
right.
yeah, and the bumper music's not bumping in.
There's no bumping
There's
from the
no
bumper.
there's no bump in the bumper.
Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we are off adventuring into spaces between. And now, while I chew on my toffee, singing bowl. I love my bowl. Sometimes we just need more singing bowl. Yes. What?
Huh?
Okay.
I was just thinking about SNL. More cowbell.
Right? I still think, yeah, definitely more cowbell, more singing bowl. So tonight we're talking about burdens and such because, yes, burdens are all around us. It doesn't really matter who we are, what we're doing. We all have some sort of burden we're dealing with, and so in talking about burdens, so many of us listening are following a different spiritual path, so we're more pagan. And as a result, it's kind of sometimes hard to, figure out what the burden is. Is in Christianity, for instance, and I do poke at it just a little bit, just because that's the one I'm most familiar with. That doesn't mean there aren't other religions out there that I could poke at. It's just,
It's just the major topic one.
yeah, it's just the one I know. And so with paganism, there's a lot of people assume that the structures and restrictions that go along with Christianity or whatever their parent religion was should still apply to paganism. And often when it comes to paganism, that lack of understanding means we have a lack of knowledge when it comes to what are the responsibilities, what are the burdens when it comes to following a different deity than Yahweh. And so, for instance, I don't worship the deities that I work with. That's not a burden that I feel necessary to bear. Instead of, it's a relationship. I speak to them. I will leave an offering in thanks, in gratitude, but it's not. I don't feel compelled to grovel on bent knee in front of a shrine to a deity that I just have a passing acquaintance with. I really don't. I don't feel that need. I don't have that burden, if you will, to do that kind of thing. Instead, my burden or my responsibility is to learn. Learn more about my path and to communicate more about that spirituality rather than religion. Because religion, honestly, is spirituality with a side of dogma, or often dogma with a side of spirituality. And I'd rather be spiritual and follow a path towards enlightenment than be drugged down by dogma.
It just went through my head what you said. You don't want to have dogma with a side of spirituality. That took a minute to process. Sorry.
Yeah. There's not enough gravy to cover that. So another, another one is that we mentioned it slightly earlier, is the tithing. I don't feel compelled to donate any of my finances to support dogma. Now, do I wish we had some sort of location locally that we could all go as pagans periodically and celebrate our spirituality and our differences?
As long as it's not Starbucks, I'm good with it.
No, I think we're going to go to Monarch Mountain or Monarch Coffee next time.
Are they still open?
Yeah, they moved down on First.
Oh.
Over by City Beach Organics.
Where the hell is that? Never mind.
So, yeah, it's they have a room. Anyways, so when it comes to tithing, I mean the theory behind tithing was that the funds were supposed to pay for a structure for people to go to worship, and to make sure that the priests or priestesses would be able to eat and be clothed, and be able to teach the masses the lessons. Anyways, it ended up being, a lot of things happened in the priesthood. Instead of trying to take care of the people, started like, woohoo, free money, y'all, and got greedy. So now I'm not just saying that's the way it always was. It just often with unrestricted financial gain, there's things happen, and greed is, well, greed. So if there was someplace locally, yeah, I'd happily donate some money to it to help support it. But then I'd also show up to make sure the
It's being used properly,
being used properly.
like we're supposed to do with the
Yep.
them.
Make sure the yard's trimmed. Make sure the garbage gets taken out.
Streets are kept without potholes.
Exactly. So, being responsible, it just, I don't know, it's frustrating to think that, people are like, you know what, I have to donate money because I have to take care of these people. No, I really don't. I would just as soon spend the funds to make sure my family's taken care of first. I don't want to feel guilty because I didn't separate out 15% of my income after taxes to support somebody else. Honestly, there's been significant times or spans of time in my life when that would have created an undue hardship.
The thing is, though, is there used to be a time when it wasn't tithing. A community used to come together, and they used to take care of certain people with certain job titles and responsibilities, like teachers, and their preachers, priests, pastors, whatever. But then it turned into this required thing. Population got bigger, and it became a job to be a teacher. It became a job, not something somebody did because they loved to do it, and they knew they would be taken care of, to a certain extent. They're given a place to live. That place is upkept by the community. They're given food. They're given a stipend. That kind of thing, and that's all gone away. So this blends in with the whole tithing thing. Now we have to tithe. The Olsteins have to have their 15%, or else we're not going to pray for you. That is a fact. Your donation of $100 will get you 2 of our prayers.
Yeah. Okay. If I remember my Bible studies correctly, and it's been a while, didn't Jesus get kind of upset with the Pharisees for charging people different monetary amounts to buy their way into heaven? Yeah. So honestly, that's not the way it works.
But
not for Christianity and not for any other religion.
It should not be your faith should not be a burden.
Exactly. So, when it comes to paganism, my burden, again, like I mentioned earlier, is to learn more about the deities I work with.
Correct.
My burden, and I don't really see it as a burden, is to honor them.
That's different. That's an accepted obligation.
Exactly. So if it's an accepted obligation, to me, it's no longer a burden, because it just is it becomes part of who I am. Kind of like Groot. Groot's pretty cool. Groot's 3 years old. Groot has real oak leaves now.
Groot's 2 years old.
3 years old.
Whatever.
Anyways, so my obligation is to take care of Groot. At some point, Groot will go in the dirt outside, and he'll be, be able to grow up into a full-grown oak someday. But for now, he's in a little pot on the windowsill. Okay, he's in a big pot on the windowsill, but still, he's growing and doing his thing. But then I took on that obligation of making sure he's taken care of. Just like Drama, the chubby cat that walked across the desk, took on the obligation to take care of her. My expectation was she would eat mice.
And she does. That's why
does.
she's a chubby little thing.
Beast. Yeah. Yeah. She also eats gophers. And I'm okay with that too. So, anyway. So, the other thing with paganism, I feel obligated to make sure I'm teaching Mini-Me some aspects of my path. Now, some things are age restrictive, and so, yep, she's just not there yet. And that's fine. So we're going to find other ways. And we'll probably make birdseed bombs for the birds with peanut butter and birdseed, which, yeah, I see Mr. Don over there rolling his eyeballs. But you know what? She's going to love that.
Caro syrup.
Why would you use Caro syrup?
I don't know. It sticks together.
And so does peanut butter. But that's my responsibility is to teach her about spirituality rather than religion. Another thing I feel pretty obligated to do is kind of memorialize or make note in some way, shape, or form my path, my journey, what I'm learning. And I'm doing that kind of right here with you guys, listening in and following me, and you all just hanging out and talking about stuff, and yeah.
Great. So she'll look back and go, God, that guy was an idiot.
Who?
My mom was pretty cool, though.
Who, Mini-Me? No. She'll be totally astounded by the beard. And then she'll ask you why it's not braided. She's tried to do that. It's kind of funny. The other thing I feel compelled to do, in part because I'm a witch, is learning more what that really means. There's an interesting article that Pathos had out, I think today or yesterday, basically poking at those who say it's easy to be a witch. The only thing that's required to be a witch is to say, hey, I'm a witch. And, there's a little bit more to it than that.
That's ignorance.
Well, it's a neo-witch kind of a thing. And it's, I don't know, it was an interesting article, and if you follow me on Facebook, you'll probably see it because I shared it, because there are some good parts to it, but a lot of it was kind of from the viewpoint of the author, which all of those articles are, and, it's, I guess my burden is to read things and have critical thought, which I didn't realize.
That's another thing we don't teach our kids, is how to critically think yourself in and out of a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And do it successfully.
I mean, you can either learn how to open the door.
What would I do? What would happen if I ate this Tide Pod?
Right. Well, so, yeah, yeah. I mean, you could be like a cat. So, 2 cats in the household. Drama. If the door's shut and is partially open, she will open it up all the way and do her own thing. Just like sometimes we have to dig her out of the towel closet because the cabinet door's not shut. Okay. Boda, the little black and white nuisance. If the door is cracked open and he can't get his little bitty head through the door, he sits outside and cries. Doesn't matter who is on the other side of the door. And it's just, he hasn't figured out that if he touches the door with his foot, it will probably open. So.
Servant, get the door.
Exactly.
You see him with a little bell. Ding, ding, ding.
Exactly. So don't be a cat. Learn some critical thinking. So that's as a parent. I think teaching mini me how to critically think is kind of important, just like
And
parallel parking.
and that 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 creates its own kind of release from burden.
Hmm.
Because if you could still make a bad choice, but if the bad choice isn't the worst choice, you still have a burden. It's just not as big.
Hmm.
That's like you go to work. We trade you. You trade us hours. We trade you money.
Hmm.
That's the way it works. But it becomes a burden if you've decided you don't like the job. You come in. You're lazy. You don't get the job done. And now it's a burden to you, and it's a burden to us. Cut the ties. Go the hell away.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and I've had a few jobs where, yeah, I did it because I had to, because my responsibility to my family was to make sure the bills were paid. But that doesn't mean I didn't stop, trying to find something else. So, hey, guess what? Titan asked a question.
Nice.
Hey, Titan says, Paisley and Don, how does paganism guide to recover from certain types of bad burdens? Some can be like recovering from a bone break or a burn. There are different types, yes. Okay, I think he's going to go get his sword. So, how to recover from certain types of bad burdens? Well, cleansing. Cleanse yourself. There are certain like spiritual burdens that you can cut yourself off from, so you don't have to drag around the dregs. He's so excited about his little knife.
Bullshit cutter. That's how you cut cords.
Yes. Now, from a bone break or a burn,
That's different.
that is a little different. The physical healing. Well, you gotta eat healthy. If you go to the doctor, which I totally get, some of those you probably do need to. Do what your doctor tells you to do. Like, if you're supposed to put your foot up because you broke it in 4 places and not walk around on it all day, you should probably put your foot up and not walk around on it all day.
So with that kind of burden, hopefully that kind of burden goes away by taking care of yourself, doing what you need to do to make yourself better. Is that really a burden, though? Well, bad things happen. You fall down, you twist your ankle, you break a leg. It happens. That's life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a burden because maybe you can't work.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can't take care of yourself as well as you think you should or can, and you get frustrated about it. But this is life.
Mm-hmm.
That's life. That's something that happens that you have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's necessarily a burden. The burden would be making sure you're taking care of yourself so that burden is resolved in the end as best as possible. Now, a person who is missing a leg, a person who's missing an arm, through no fault of their own, because that would be a burden.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a burden if it was somebody else's fault. It would be a burden if it was their fault, or it'd still be a burden if it was just an accident.
Mm-hmm.
It would become a burden. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You can't just sit around and woe's me all day,
Mm-hmm.
every day for the rest of your freaking life. You got to find a way to get through it. And that's where let me go back up to the question here.
Mm-hmm.
Recovery. Okay, yeah, recovery in these situations is not just a physical thing. It's a mental, it's a spiritual thing. It can be a very spiritual thing, because you may feel that you're not going to be able to do this thing that you do to enhance your say if you're blind,
Mm-hmm.
if you become blind and you can't do your reading, you can't read, to make yourself better in your pagan path, then
Audible books.
well, yes, there are answers now, but what if there isn't? How would you take care of that? This would become burdensome. He says, I should have clarified the mental aspects of life burdens, bad experience happen to us, perhaps grounding, shadow work, and those things. Yes. And that's
Yes.
kind of where I'm going with this, because, you have to work through it. And that's shadow work. That's shadow work, realizing that you have something that's happening and you need to get rid of it. Now, shadow work, you might have to go back into your past and look at it and examine what happened, how you acted, and is there some way I can change that for the better? The answer is absolutely. And they all are. Everything can become burdensome if you let it. And that's my thinking on that.
Lucky just said someone telling you a secret is a huge burden. Not well, it can be. Yes, it depends on the secret.
Right.
It's like, hey, I got chocolate. It's a secret. That's not a burden. But hey,
Hey, I had sex with your brother.
That's a burden. You did?
No.
How did he feel about that? So,
it's kind of the thing, though.
So yeah, when it comes to grounding, ground out that energy, the bad experiences. I'm a big believer in therapy, counseling. There's some excellent counselors out there. You don't have to go to the very first one you find permanently. Find one that's going to work with you. But yeah, counseling and therapy are a big deal. And often your counseling and your therapy works best in conjunction with the shadow work. To do one or the other is kind of like leaving the job half done. And often also we do the shadow work without realizing that's what we're doing.
Right.
A good therapist or counselor can lead you down that path without even realizing that they're doing it sometimes. It's like, hey, what led you to this point? What parts of your self are you not taking care of that made it easier for this thing to happen? Or to help you, make it easier for you to get into this headspace. And so sometimes, we shove down that shadow part of ourselves that we just don't want to deal with, or isn't acceptable. So for a lot of us listening in here, that's being pagan, or being a witch. That's been shoved down and ignored because it wasn't socially acceptable. Maybe it wasn't acceptable to your family. Maybe you were trying to be Christian, and I get it. Or whatever your familial religion is or was. And you ignore that part of yourself, and it kind of gets stymied and stunted. And, you have to nurture that back into being a living thing, a living feeling. Patience. Ultimately, have patience with yourself as you're working through all of that. Patience is a big deal. Let's see. Apparently, Lucky's having ham, and she's not sharing. But, when things happen, actually, partly, time out, back up, we should be journaling things anyways, whether it's your plague journal from 2020, your dream journal, or, just whatever it is that you're journaling is, you should be writing down the things that upset you too. It shouldn't always be sunshine and rainbows in your journal. But also, it shouldn't always be gloom and doom either. When I was younger and an angsty teenager, I had a significant other that was a POS. I knew he was a POS, but I was okay with him being a POS because I had been conditioned to accept that level of POS.
Right.
And in going back through and reading my journals when I was a little bit older, it's like, OMG, what was I thinking? And I ended up burning those kind of because it felt good to let all of that out. Hey, that's not who I am anymore. Move on. But yeah, that's who I was conditioned to accept because, well, yeah. And, since then I've had some counseling on that one and some help on my communication issues. And because, yes, I needed those things. I needed that help. And that happens. So, On that note, before we go anywhere else, it's last break. So I don't know if anybody can hear the break, but we'll be right back. Gotta click the button.
Sisters of the shining moon, heaven, earth, and sea, I call upon you in this hour, bring magic unto me. Brothers, oh, the cauldron cries, it singeth unto me the songs of Mother Goddess and the Father in the tree.
This is Paisley Wild, and we are off adventuring into the spaces between. Dragon Dawn kicking and screaming along with me,
Yep.
or yawning and sneezing along with me.
No, I haven't sneezed yet. Yet.
So let's see. Justin mentioned in the chat that he took someone in. His neighbor kicked out
Their mother.
and was going to just drop her off in downtown Portland. Took her in, got her off drugs and alcohol, huge burden. But she's on her feet and moving out next week. Some burdens are a moral thing that we cannot choose. It was a little rough, which I totally get. And regardless of the background, yeah. Moral. Wow. Morals.
Now, moral burdens or moral responsibilities?
Moral responsibilities. That's something I think that we're not being taught enough right now is moral responsibilities.
Just do the right thing.
Well, so many kids these days, or people, not just kids, but people, so many people these days don't understand what the right thing is.
Right.
Which is why about once a month I get a report saying, hey, can you, they're looking for information on some hit and run somewhere else, within, a 4-hour radius of where we live. And it's like, why on earth are people doing the hit and run thing? I don't remember so many hit and runs even 5 years ago, let alone 10 years ago. And your moral responsibility is to stop and help the person that you hit. At least that's the way I was raised, and that's my understanding. That's the right thing to do. So it's when someone is being put out of house and home in a situation beyond their control, which we've seen it happen. We've all seen it happen, regardless of age. And, what's the moral responsibility? What is the right thing to do? Now, that being said, we do have older boys, and we've had to put the foot down, the proverbial foot down, and say, hey, you know what? This isn't working out. You're old enough to have your own job and pay your own bills, and so since you don't want to do that here, you're going to have to find out another way to do it somewhere else. And generally speaking, both the boys are doing pretty okay. One's settled and has a family of his own, and the other one is working it out, figuring it out, and is actually had the same job for about 6 months, at least, if not almost a year. Which, trust me, I didn't think that one was going to happen. So, it was hard choices on in that situation on both boys, because basically they had learned everything that we were able to teach. And so at that point you have to stop and look, what's the correct thing? What's the right thing to do here? Well, they really needed to learn a lesson somewhere else with other people, and they have. And they're better for it. They had to go through some hard times and experience real burdens on their own. And you know what? They're doing good now. Do I agree with all their choices? Nope. But as a parent, I'm not going to.
Nope.
It's like, wow, if you had just made a left turn instead of a right turn, wow, we would be in a totally different boat. But that's, different situation altogether. We've also seen it with, other people that have had problems with family in one way, shape, or another. And it's frustrating to me when the burden if you will, doesn't go both ways. It's like they want to have the privilege of saying, woe is me, and I'm doing all these things.
Oh, you mean like cake?
Oh, yeah, have the cake and eat it too. Okay, yeah, exactly. The woe is me, I'm doing all these things, but at the same time, I don't want to deal with that responsibility. That's frustrating to me, because either you commit to doing the right thing or you don't. And sometimes the right thing is a really, really gray area, and the burden there is trying to figure your way through that gray area. And, once you figure it out, draw the proverbial line in the sand and deal with it. And you know what? At this point, I regret the way some of the decisions were made or the things that came about with the boys. But do I regret the results? No, not really. I think they're both better kids for it. I say that as they rapidly approach 30. Yes, they're both kids. So I hope that down the road they stop and think about and have that same realization, just like I did. It's like, oh, great, I'm turning into my parent. And it's nuts to me. So that's the burden of responsibility, though, that you have to stop and look at. It's like, what is the true responsibility? What's the right way to handle the responsibility? And as a parent, making the decision. And the burden then is living with the choice. And sometimes that's a hard one. That's a heavy one. That metaphorical heaviness is sometimes heavier than, trying to move a car by hand. It's just, oof. Aaron says, I love it when my daughter says, when I have kids, I'm going to do this or that so they aren't brats. I'm like, okay, can't wait to watch and see this.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll bring the popcorn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, some things, some thoughts along that same direction when I was a kid, and then now that I'm an adult, it's different. And I've heard the same thing from the boys, and it makes me giggle because, yeah. Anyways, so if you are choosing to be a burden, and this is the verb form, you're causing someone hardship or distress, and you see, that's not the right thing to do. You shouldn't cause someone hardship or distress. But also, you shouldn't assume that you are a burden because you feel that you are causing someone hardship and distress, because unless someone, the person that you think is in that role, says, hey, you're being a burden, you need to do something different, generally speaking, you're not a burden. This is where the burden of open communication is a big deal, or clear communication is a big deal. So, yeah, think about that when you're worried about, am I being a burden or am I not being a burden, or is the people I'm around with, being burdened by what's going on? Well, you know what? Communication, it's a real thing. The example here is they were not yet burdened with adult responsibility. It's amazing how much of that adult responsibility changes someone's perspective on what a true burden is. I like paying the bills. If you've never paid the bills before, you don't really understand that aspect of being an adult, and so you don't really realize how much of a burden it is to make sure the bills are paid timely every month. Just because you got the bills paid last month doesn't mean you can skate this month. You have to kind of do it every month. It's part of being a grown-up. You want to eat the food, you got to pay the grocery bill. You want to have lights on and have power to charge your phone, you got to pay the power bill. Yeah, you got to pay the power bill. You got to roll with it. Let's see. Justin says so many in this new generation think everything is supposed to be easy, and they are sadly mistaken. Yes.
Wait until the power goes out and see what happens.
Right? Yeah, see, that coronal flare knocks out power, knocks down the grid. How many kids are going to lose their ever-loving mind because their iPad won't charge?
Yeah. How are they going to communicate? How are they going to get to and from? How are they going to? They just don't know.
How are they going to verbally communicate with the people around them?
LOL. IDK.
I do say OMG quite
Totes.
often. Totes. Oh, totes my goats.
Yeah.
I said something to someone one time, and she responded, "Oh, totes." And then I looked at her, totally confused, like,
You're
handbags?
45 years old.
Oh, no, I didn't say that. I just looked at her because I was very, very confused. I'm like, handbags? What's that got to do with anything? Because, yet, that's not a word to me. Unless you're carrying something, then I suppose totes would be appropriate.
Yeah, one who totes a pistol.
I have multiple totes in the back of the truck. I don't know. Aaron says, drop the teenagers in the woods for 2 weeks. No, you'll get a lawsuit for not taking care of them. Because they weren't able to tweet about it. Totes is supposedly a
short version of the word totally. Totally. Totes.
Which is such a long word.
I heard a new one today, Rezzies. I made these Rezzies at the restaurant. What? What the hell does that mean?
Okay, that's a word I've heard before, but it had absolutely nothing to do with reservations at a restaurant. I grew up on a reservation. So, anyways, yeah. I'm just kidding. Also, there are times when we look at people around us and we feel that we are being weighed down by other people's expectations. So in that case, other people's expectations are 100% a burden. Titan says a burden should give equal exchange of value. The moment it doesn't, be rid of it.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's when it becomes a burden.
Mm-hmm.
It's when it's no longer valuable.
Exactly. So, yeah, it's an exchange of value means I'm giving my time for X amount of dollars. And I tend to look at my time kind of guardedly because my time has value. I mean, I could spend time with Mini-Me rather than going to work every day. Or I don't even go to work every day anymore. It's my therapy. I get paid for it. I get a hug of Crystal. But, I mean, yeah, the equal exchange. And an equal exchange isn't always the same for everyone. What I see value in, Dawn might not, or Mini-Me might not, or hey Vlash, happy Germany time. You don't have to deal with daylight savings time in Germany.
Oh, do they? I don't know.
No, that's a totally U.S. thing.
Yeah,
Thank you, Ben Franklin.
True. Oh.
So, how's it going, Vlash? So yeah, if you're excessively burdened with expectations or worries or troubles, yeah, that's going to make life stressful for you. It's going to be harder for you to find the joy in life, harder to find the enthusiasm, harder to find your path, whatever it may be. And, I generally recommend a spiritual path rather than a religious one, just because I think spiritualism has more value than religion. So, I don't feel my pagan path is burdensome. You know what? I think that's a really good statement right there that I want to go into. I don't feel burdened by being a pagan. Often, when I tried so hard to be more Christian, because I tried really hard. I felt burdened. You know, the expectation that you have to dress a certain way, you have to speak a certain way, your kids have to have certain behaviors, you have to memorize this, you have to know that. And you have to toe the line, dot the I's, cross the T's, kneel on command, you know, and basically, I don't know, felt like I was sucking the life out of myself and my existence in hopes for a better afterlife. And instead, as a pagan, I don't feel that way. I feel like I can live my life knowing that upon death, I go from this life to the next life, whatever that may be, and it'll be a new adventure. It'll be a new journey at that point. And I don't feel that burden or assumption of sin that is often dangled about with Christianity. I don't feel it. You know, I feel like I do have to teach, you know, make sure my family understands right and wrong. But again, that kind of goes back to the morals. Make sure my family understands morals, moral responsibility. And, you know, it's, I don't know, to me, the pagan path just isn't very burdensome.
And well, it shouldn't be.
I
Because here's something in our cases, something that we've come to realize is better for us than what we were shown. And this is part of our releasing the burdens of childhood, you know, because this is what I was taught and this is what I know. And I know that what I was taught is not working. It does not work for me. It is not something that I can morally adhere to. I can't just have blind faith in something. You know, so these things, you know, we've chosen it. Now, what we pass down to, you know, what we pass down to the kids and things like this is something that we have to give them an expanded version of. You know, if they choose not to, fine, whatever. If they choose to, fine, whatever. If they choose this over that, fine, whatever. Be happy with what you chose. Realize that there are pros and cons to everything. And this is where critical thinking comes in. And so you really have to weigh your options and decide, you know. So
I think comparative theology or comparative religion should be a required class.
Sure, whatever. But I was just kind of leading into it being springtime. It's the perfect time to clean.
Yes, it is a good time to clean. It's always a good time to clean. Yeah, you know, when we stop and think about the stuff that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, sometimes it's time to just let stuff go because it has become a burden. That's why there's a couch out in my carport.
Yes, those are burdens.
It was, yes. Yes, if one religion is taught in schools, they all should be. Let's see. Oh, yes, Vlash. Yes, no mask. I'm happy to not wear a mask in North Idaho. When we feel, or when we are being burdened by others, we need to make sure that they are giving us, yes, something in exchange for that burden or the acceptance of that burden, whether it's financial exchange, time exchange, or, you know, a thing, you know, some tangible, you know, exchange of items. So it's kind of like babysitting. If you're going to take on the responsibility or the burden of watching someone else's child, you should be, you know, receiving something in exchange. And just because that's the way it works out. If you have an employer that you're committing to go to work to or work for, you're accepting the burden of showing up on time, doing the job that is expected of you when it is expected of you.
Right.
and other duties as assigned, which is a real thing. And in exchange, you should be financially compensated in accordance to your work level, your job level. Like right now, my income level is nothing what it was 10 years ago. Mostly because I see this as my retirement job, and I'm pretty okay with that because, yeah, I'm getting paid to go to therapy. I hug crystals all day. There's nothing wrong with that. 10 years ago, that was a different kind of situation. So, it's understanding the give and the take and the responsibility. As we age or as we mature, our responsibilities change and our burdens change. Now we have grandkids. I never expected that to happen.
Lucky says, I agree, Paisley. I think if one religion is taught in schools, all religions should be taught in schools. When I was in school, back in 85, high school, 85, 86, I had a teacher who would not let people read the Bible or any Christian-related material in class. However, they could bring Ouija boards, a satanic Bible, Aleister Crowley, all these other things, but not Christianity. Now, you can't, and that's, if one religion is taught in schools, all religions should be taught in schools. Well, this isn't them teaching, it's them barring one specific one because they don't feel it's correct, and I don't agree with that. They should have let that person read the Bible or, read their watchtowers or whatever it is. If it's free reading time, it's their time.
If you want to read the Bible, learn more about the Bible and the studies within the Bible, absolutely knock yourself out. Make notes. That way you don't forget what you're trying to learn.
That's right.
That's what journals are for, kids.
But no, comparative theology.
Yep, comparative theology. And for those of you, history. History is full of religion.
Mm-hmm.
And
look at the Ottoman Empire.
Right? It's really hard to learn history if you're not learning about religions at the same time.
Right.
Because you can't see. It's really hard to view a lot of the ancient religions or the historical religions through the Christian lens and have the right, a comprehensive viewpoint. You're missing a lot. It's like 2D versus 3D when you're seeing. So, anyways, we're just about done for tonight.
I have to say this real quick.
Yes?
I'm having a side conversation with Justin, and he just totes me. He's like, totes. Oh my God, did he just totes me?
Yes. Well, Vlash says that resi is a work-bounded term. It's a short term for hotel reception. In German, the word is Rezeption.
Sure, but I mean, ignorance should not reign. Za does not mean pizza.
Just because
people are lazy and they don't want to speak properly, and this is why we've gone through so many iterations of the languages, because people just decide that they want to say different things.
Yep, cultural shift. Someday, totes will be ancient history.
I hope so.
And 2021 will be a pass-fail test question.
And they are taking roll.
Yep. I agree, Justin. All right, so in summary, when it comes to burdens, don't assume that what you're doing is a burden for others. On the flip side, don't assume that is not a burden for others.
Right. Be considerate and at least ask.
Yeah, open communication.
If I do this, will that be okay?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Are you okay with this or that?
And, I would rather have someone open up a line of dialogue than assume that something is a burden. And also, what is a burden for one person may not be a burden for others. So keep it in perspective, guys. And
Sorry, I was having a privy conversation, I guess. Privs.
You guys are such dorks. All right, so we are at the end of the night. So merry meet you guys, merry part, and merry meet again. And we shall see you tomorrow night. We're going to talk about time.
And Pink Floyd just went right through my head.
It was Eagles for me, so, time slipping into the future.
That's not the
Isn't it
Eagles.
Eagles? Who
That
is it?
was Bob Seger.
At this point, I don't know.
There's always Time in a Bottle by JT,
Isn't
James
that,
Taylor.
isn't that Genie in a Bottle?
No, it was If I Could
Yeah,
Save
shake your hips.
Time in a Bottle, first thing that I'd like to do.
Good night, everybody.
Lord within the sun, as we will, so mote it be, the spell forever done.